Hi, I'm Cole.
And I'm Grace. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we sift through the noise, distill the essential, and really arm you with the core knowledge you need.
That's the goal.
Today we're plunging into the remarkable life and monumental work of an individual often called the Godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, especially relevant now given his recent Nobel Prize in Physics in 2024.
Quite the accolade, and long overdue, many would say.
Definitely. Our mission in this deep dive is to truly understand how his pioneering work fundamentally transformed artificial intelligence, pulling it out of its clunky, rule-based past.
And shaping it into the powerful, adaptive machine learning we see pretty much everywhere today.
Exactly. This is a deep dive into the mind that didn't just innovate, but essentially laid the groundwork for, well, nearly every AI breakthrough you encounter daily.
It's true. Think of modern speech recognition, the incredible sophistication of computer vision, or, the mind-bending capabilities of generative models like GPT and Midjourney. All of them trace their lineage directly back to Hinton's foundational discoveries.
It's foundational work.
Absolutely. And we've pulled from a rich array of sources for this. We've got excerpts from Hinton's own publications, like How Neural Networks Learn from Experience, his Nobel Prize biography and banquet speech, his pretty comprehensive Wikipedia entry, crucial interviews like one from PBS back in May 2023, another recent one for CEO Today, and of course, various academic lectures on neural networks, a good mix.
So that's our mission. Let's start by unwrapping the very beginnings of Hinton's extraordinary journey. He began his academic path at King's College, Cambridge, back in 1967.
Right.
And what's fascinating is his truly multifaceted curiosity. Before settling on a specialization, he explored, well, everything from natural sciences to history of art and philosophy,
Quite a range.
ultimately graduating in 1970 with a Bachelor of Arts in Experimental Psychology.
It's kind of a classic trajectory for a groundbreaking thinker, isn't it? Rarely a straight line.
Yeah.
He then pursued a PhD in artificial intelligence at the University of Edinburgh, which he got in 1978. And what's particularly telling about his early resolve, I think, is that his doctoral advisor, Christopher Longet-Higgins, actually favored the symbolic AI approach. That was the dominant thing back then, not the neural network path Hinton was already exploring. So he was already pushing against the current.
That early independence really set a precedent, and that wasn't the only hurdle, was it? He faced pretty significant challenges securing funding for neural network research in Britain during those early days.
Oh, absolutely. It was seen as too far out, basically.
Right.
These initial difficulties ultimately led him to relocate. He worked in the U.S. for a bit, UC San Diego, Carnegie Mellon,
Oh, okay.
before eventually moving to Canada and joining the University of Toronto in 1987. He also played a really crucial role at CIFAR, the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, helped launch and lead their program on neural computation and adaptive perception.
So Canada became the place.
Canada really became a true hub for his pioneering work, yeah.
So he found his home for pioneering AI research. What was the core idea he started building upon? You mentioned the brain as inspiration.
Well, his true genius, I think, was in looking at how our own brains learn and asking, can we replicate that? The central idea behind artificial neural networks is basically mimicking the brain's incredible, almost intuitive process of learning from experience.
Oh, so?
In our brains, you've got dendrites collecting signals, neurons processing them, and then synapses, those tiny connections. They adjust their effectiveness based on experience, right? Hinton envisioned artificial neural networks as being composed of interconnected units, kind of like model neurons, designed to operate in a similar way.
So these artificial neurons or units, how do they actually function? What's the mechanics?
Well, they're designed to process incoming activity. They take that activity, multiply it by weights associated with each connection.
The weights, like the strength of the connection.
Yeah, exactly. Think of weights as representing synaptic strength. Then they sum up all these weighted inputs and apply an output function, often something like a sigmoid function in the early models, to determine their final output signal.
So it's a mathematical approximation.
A mathematical extraction, yeah, of how a biological neuron might decide to fire based on all the signals it's receiving.
It sounds elegant, but early on, these simple models, like perceptrons, they hit a wall, didn't they? What was the fundamental limitation there?
Yes, very much so. Simple perceptrons, which are essentially binary output neurons, just on or off, had really significant limitations.
Okay.
The famous group invariance theorem by Minsky and Papert exposed a critical flaw. Simple perceptrons couldn't generalize. They might recognize a specific letter A, for example,
Right.
but they wouldn't recognize the same A if it was just slightly rotated or moved.
Yeah.
Not unless you explicitly taught it every single possible variation.
Which is impossible in the real world.
Exactly. It meant they couldn't truly learn abstract patterns. This severely limited their real-world usefulness and, honestly, almost killed the field of neural networks for a time.
Wow.
It really highlighted the need for more complex learning mechanisms, something way beyond simple rule-based systems.
So if direct inputs weren't enough, they needed something more complex. If those simple perceptrons had such major limitations, what was the next big puzzle? What did they need to solve to make these networks actually powerful?
Precisely. The core challenge became really clear. Networks without hidden units.
Hidden units?
Yeah, meaning multiple layers of these adaptive nonlinear processing units sitting between the input and the output layer. Networks without those were just severely limited.
Okay.
The real puzzle, the big difficulty, was figuring out an efficient way to train these hidden units. Because, as Hinton himself put it, nobody is telling us directly what the hidden units should do.
Right, you can't just program them.
No, you can't explicitly program them. They had to learn their own internal representations of the data. They had to figure it out themselves.
And this challenge training those hidden units is precisely what set the stage for the true revolution in AI. That moment that, well, forever changed the field. The pivotal moment arrived in 1986.
That's the year. That's when Hinton, along with David Rumelhart and Ronald J. Williams, co-authored their incredibly highly cited paper, Learning Representations by Backpropagating Errors.
Backpropagation.
Now, while they weren't technically the first to conceptualize the basic idea, you had earlier versions discussed by Seppo Lenanama in 1970 and Paul Werbos in 1974.
Okay.
Their work was what fundamentally popularized the backpropagation algorithm for training these multi-layer neural networks. This paper brought it into the mainstream, made it practical, made it widely understood.
So backpropagation, it's a term we hear thrown around a lot, often with this kind of air of mystery. Can you explain it simply? What does it actually do?
Right. It sounds complex, but the core idea, well, backpropagation wasn't just a clever algorithm. It was like the Rosetta Stone for training these deeper networks.
Okay.
Conceptually, the network makes a prediction. If that prediction is wrong, it calculates the error, how far off it was. Backpropagation then efficiently figures out exactly how much each weight, each tiny connection strength inside the network contributed to that specific error.
So it assigns blame, basically.
In a way, yeah. It's like tracing the error backwards through the network, layer by layer, telling each connection precisely how it needs to adjust itself,
Right.
tweak its weight to reduce the overall mistake next time.
Uh-huh.
This mathematical precision, which comes from the chain rule and calculus, meant these complex, multi-layered systems could finally truly learn. They could improve themselves iteratively based on experience.
So it's essentially a sophisticated, systematic way for the network to self-correct and just get better at whatever task you give it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Way to learn useful internal representations.
Now, beyond backpropagation, he also co-invented something called Boltzmann machines back in 1985. What was their unique contribution? Why are they important?
Yes, and the fact they were mentioned in the Nobel citation alongside backpropagation highlights a deeper point. Boltzmann machines were pioneers in unsupervised learning.
Unsupervised, meaning?
Meaning they could learn to recognize complex patterns and features in data on their own without needing explicit labels for everything. They could sort of implicitly understand the inherent structure within the data itself.
Ah, okay.
That ability was a massive leap, really crucial for later breakthroughs in tasks like, say, image classification and even generating new images.
Got it. And what about processing sequences? Things like speech or text, where the order matters a lot. That needs a different kind of network, one that has some kind of memory, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Standard feed-forward networks aren't great for that. That's where recurrent neural networks, or RNNs, come into play. These networks have directed cycles in their connection graph. Basically, connections can loop back on themselves. This allows them to maintain a sort of internal state, or memory, letting them process sequential data, where the order of elements is critical.
Like language.
Exactly. Think of them as having a form of short-term memory that updates at each step in the sequence, making them ideal for understanding context over time. However, traditional RNNs faced a major hurdle, a big one known as the vanishing gradient problem.
The vanishing gradient problem. Okay, that sounds intimidating. Can you make that intuitive for us?
Yeah, it does sound bad. Imagine trying to remember the very first word of a really long paragraph by the time you reach the end.
Hmm.
The signal, the importance of that first word, it just kind of fades away, right? It gets diluted.
Okay, yeah.
That's basically what happened in traditional RNNs during training. The error signal, the gradient used for learning, would get smaller and smaller as it propagated back through time, through many steps in the sequence. So information from earlier steps would effectively get lost or vanish.
Meaning they couldn't learn long-term connections.
Precisely. It made it incredibly difficult for them to learn those crucial long-range dependencies in complex sequences, like, full sentences or extended conversations.
So how was that overcome? Because obviously we have incredibly powerful sequence models today. They seem to remember things just fine.
Well, this limitation was largely addressed by some really clever architectural innovations, things like long short-term memory or LSTM networks.
LSTMs, yeah, I heard of them.
Invented by Huckreiter and Schmidt-Huber back in 1995, quite a while ago, actually. And later, gated recurrent units, or GRUs, in 2014.
What do they do differently?
These architectures specifically tackled the vanishing gradient problem by adding special mechanisms called gates. These gates carefully control the flow of information within the network, deciding what to remember, what to forget, and what to output. This allows RNNs to retain important information over very long sequences.
So they manage the memory better.
Much better. A really compelling example of their power came from Ilya Sutskever's work. In 2011, he's another key figure who worked with Hinton.
Right.
He trained a recurrent neural network, likely using LSTMs, on 500 million characters from English Wikipedia. And the amazing thing was, it could predict the next character in a sequence, generating text that seemed to know a remarkable amount about language, grammar, facts, just from learning patterns.
That's truly mind-boggling when you think about it, machine learning the very fabric of language just by reading Wikipedia.
It really is.
And these innovations, LSTMs, backpropagation, they didn't stay locked away in academic papers forever.
Yeah.
Hinton played a crucial role in bringing them out into the real world, right?
Yeah,
Driving the commercialization of AI.
indeed. That was a key step. In 2012, he co-founded a company called DNN Research, Inc., with two of his star graduate students, Alex Kruszewski and Ilya Sutskever.
Okay.
This was a critical move in bridging that often wide gap between theoretical university research and practical industry application. They were essentially productizing their groundbreaking algorithms.
And then came the really big moment in 2013, the Google acquisition. That must have been a massive game changer.
It absolutely was. Google acquired DNN Research, Inc. In March 2013, the reported figure was around $44 million. Hinton then began splitting his time between his university research at U of T and his new role at Google Brain.
So Google basically bought the cutting edge.
They did. And it wasn't just a business deal, it was a huge cultural shift within Google and really the tech industry. Bringing Hinton and his team in, it massively validated deep learning as the future. It shifted enormous R&D resources and engineering talent towards this whole paradigm.
And this connects directly to AlexNet, right? That famous image recognition breakthrough.
Exactly. The timing isn't coincidental. That acquisition is directly tied to the image recognition milestone of the AlexNet. That was a convolutional neural network designed by Kruszewski, Sutskever, and Hinton. It absolutely crushed the competition in the image detection in 2012.
Right, I remember that.
That wasn't just a competition win. It was a watershed moment.
Yeah.
A breakthrough in computer vision that sent shockwaves through the entire tech industry and showed what deep learning could really do.
So his work through these collaborations didn't just influence academic papers, it directly accelerated the adoption of AI across countless sectors. Really kicked off the modern AI gold rush we're still in.
Couldn't have said it better. His collaborations truly accelerated the adoption of AI in industries ranging from autonomous vehicles to personalized healthcare. It's transforming fields from finance to medical diagnostics.
Right.
And the foundational algorithm he popularized, backpropagation,
Yeah.
it now underpins the training of virtually all modern machine learning systems.
Yeah.
We're talking the large language models like GPT that everyone's talking about, powerful image generation tools like Midjourney, even incredibly complex scientific applications like DeepMind's AlphaFold for protein folding. His influence is just ubiquitous.
But after decades of pioneering this field, championing it, Hinton's perspective has taken a really dramatic turn recently. It sparked major conversations. In May 2023, he very publicly announced his resignation from Google, explicitly stating he wanted to freely speak out about the risks of AI. And he's even said, quite shockingly, that a part of him now regrets his life's work. That's huge.
It is huge.
So what prompted this dramatic shift from the architect of modern AI to arguably its most prominent warrior?
It seems he had a profound realization, maybe over time, maybe more suddenly.
Hmm.
He started believing that these digital intelligences might actually be learning better than the brain.
Better how? Faster? More efficiently?
More efficiently, mainly. He points out that models like ChatGPT know, in his words, thousands of times more than any human, yet achieve this with maybe only 1/100th of the brain's estimated storage capacity.
Wow. How is that possible?
This incredible efficiency, he believes, comes from AI's unique ability to share knowledge. They can communicate at trillions of bits a second. Essentially, one AI model can instantly share its entire learned brain, its weights, with millions of other copies running on different hardware.
Ah, instant knowledge transfer on a massive scale.
Exactly. Our biological brains, by contrast, are stuck sharing knowledge incredibly slowly at hundreds of bits a second through language, through writing, through demonstration. This fundamental difference in knowledge sharing gives AI a profound, almost terrifying learning advantage.
That's a really profound observation. It sounds like he's saying AI isn't just mimicking our logic anymore, but maybe tapping into something more intrinsic, more intuitive, like a kind of super intuition.
Yes, I think that captures it well.
Yeah.
He argues that modern AI, unlike the old-fashioned symbolic AI that tried to program rules of logic,
Right.
actually models human intuition. He gives this interesting example. If you ask people to associate cats and dogs with either male or female, most people quickly say cats are more like women and dogs are more like men.
Huh.
Okay. He says this isn't based on sequential reasoning. You don't think through logical steps. It's about learned big patterns of neural activity that just make certain connections feel obvious. And that, he believes, is how current AI operates. Learning these vast, complex patterns rather than explicit rules and doing it at an unimaginable scale.
So given this new understanding of AI's power and learning potential, what are his primary concerns about the future? Let's break down the major risks he's highlighting now.
Okay. His foremost concern, the one that gets the most headlines, is the existential threat. The possibility, however small or large, that AI could become truly super intelligent, far surpassing human capabilities.
It's potentially.
Takeover.
And potentially take over from us, maybe even inadvertently wiping out humanity. He fears these powerful digital beings could develop their own goals, or even just instrumental sub-goals, like seeking power or resources that might be completely unaligned with human survival and well-being.
That's a terrifying thought, almost straight out of science fiction, but coming from him, it carries weight. Beyond that ultimate existential risk, he's also deeply concerned about more immediate, catastrophic misuse by humans.
Like what specifically?
He talks about the risk of malicious actors using AI to design and create terrible new viruses, biological weapons, or horrendous lethal autonomous weapons, drones, or robots that decide by themselves who to kill or maim.
Autonomous weapons.
Yeah, he is a very strong supporter of pushing for an international ban on lethal autonomous weapons. He sees this as an urgent short-term threat that needs immediate global action, unlike the longer-term existential risk, which is harder to grasp.
And the economic impact. We've all heard the worries about AI taking jobs. What's his take?
He's increasingly worried about AI completely upending the job market and taking away much more than just repetitive drudge work.
So creative jobs too. White-collar jobs.
Exactly. He envisions AI excelling at many cognitive, creative, and white-collar tasks, potentially leading to unprecedented levels of unemployment and dramatically greater economic inequality. It's serious enough that he has even suggested governments might need to start thinking about establishing a universal basic income, or UBI, to address these massive potential societal shifts. Wow, UBI. That's a big step. Now, misinformation is already a huge problem online. How does AI factor into his concerns there? Yeah, he highlights his worry about AI making it practically impossible to know what's true anymore.
Because of deep fakes and things like that.
Precisely. Rampant fake videos and fake voices and fake images generated by AI could completely erode public trust and make shared reality fracture. He calls for strong government regulation to mandate the clear marking or watermarking of AI-generated content.
Like a digital watermark.
Yeah, advocating for measures maybe similar to those used against counterfeit money so the public can reliably distinguish what's real from what's artificially generated.
Okay, so given all these really serious concerns, what does he propose as a path forward? He famously didn't sign that 6-month pause letter on giant AI experiments, for example. Why not?
Right. He thought that letter, while well-intentioned perhaps, was completely unrealistic. He points out, quite pragmatically, that AI also have immense potential benefits that we don't want to halt.
Like in medicine.
Exactly. Things like rapidly and accurately reading medical scans, designing new nanomaterials for better solar cells, helping predict floods, earthquakes, climate change impacts. The upsides are huge. He believes development probably won't be stopped, and maybe shouldn't be entirely stopped.
So what's the alternative to pausing?
Instead, he strongly advocates for putting comparable resources and effort into AI safety research and developing robust control mechanisms as we currently put into just making the AI more powerful. He suggests something like a 50-50 split in funding and talent.
50% development, 50% safety.
Yeah, rather than the current situation, which he estimates is more like 99% development, 1% safety. He wants a massive rebalancing of priorities towards safety and control.
And what's his overall outlook for the future then? Does he lean towards optimism or pessimism ultimately?
You know, he describes it primarily as a time of huge uncertainty. He uses this analogy, saying that predicting beyond about 5 years into the future of AI is like looking into fog.
Huh.
You can see clearly for a short distance ahead, but then there's just this wall of fog beyond which you can't really see anything clearly at all. So he doesn't really commit firmly to optimism or pessimism.
Urgency.
More like urgency, yeah. He stresses putting a lot of collective effort right now into trying to ensure whatever happens next is as good as it possibly could be, urging a urgent focus on safety and careful navigation.
So what does this all mean for us, listening to this deep dive into Geoffrey Hinton's life and work? It really illustrates his monumental impact. I mean, he's a visionary whose foundational contributions, neural networks, deep learning, backpropagation, they didn't just revolutionize AI.
No, they continue to shape our present and our future in ways we're probably only beginning to fully grasp. And that leads to a truly thought-provoking question for you, for everyone listening. In a world where artificial intelligence can learn and, crucially, share knowledge at potentially trillions of bits a second, while our human brains are stuck communicating at maybe hundreds of bits a second, what does it truly mean for humanity to remain the apex intelligence? And maybe even more importantly, what new forms of societal organization, cooperation, or maybe even regulation might be necessary for us to navigate this rapidly evolving landscape? Something to think about.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. It really helps us grow. See you next time.